Cancel.
Schweezy.
Okay, last thing I want to talk about real quick before we go to our next break / end of thing. I want to talk about The Last of Us. I record these shows on Mondays, and the finale just happened yesterday. So I've had a little bit of time to think about this, but one of the big things I'm really happy about is glad I haven't owned a PlayStation console in a long time, so I haven't played The Last of Us game, because I think, in consideration of someone, there's some things apparently about the movie interpretation versus it's not interpretation, but versus the video game, because they can't make a 1-for-1 shoot from the video game to the show, because it's like, when you're playing the video game, it's like, okay, you got to go on this mission, you got to do all these things, but like doing those missions is like, that's the part of what makes video games fun. But what makes movies good is like, shit like will not be that way. So of an adaptation, that's the word I was looking for. So for an adaptation, apparently this is really good. But some people will talk about what's going on the shirt. But I try not to get any spoilers for this season, what's going on, because they based this season off the first game, and they released The Last of Us Part 2 a couple years ago, and I got spoiled how that ends. But the thing is, I don't know the journey, so I can still enjoy the other season. I just can't be spoiled on the game. But anyways, though, very good show. I put this at the end of this little segment, so some of you wouldn't be spoiled about it. I didn't want to spoil a lot of people, but because it came out yesterday for me. So you got to figure that shit out, even though everything else I'm talking about this episode literally came out in the previous week.
Let's just jump into it.
So let's talk about it. So if you don't know what The Last of Us is, basically it's the apocalypse. Basically, if you think about it, these... I think when the game initially came out, it was like these post-apocalyptic worlds and how we became a thing or whatever. But this game is very different because it also has zombies. I'm not that into zombie shows. I'm like, I don't want to fucking watch The Walking Dead. I'm not going to watch this shit. But the way they did zombies in this show is very interesting because it is grounded in some sort of science. So there's these things called cordyceps. And cordyceps, what they are, is basically like this fungus that I think it's the rainforest, I want to say, it mind controls ants. And this is the only creature it really mind controls. And then it mind controls them and does zombie-like things and shit like that. Basically, they're fungus like that. So that's the idea of it. But it's never been like humans are too warm for cordyceps. So cordyceps would never do that. And that's why it's really only ants that they take over. But they started the series but what if they adapted in a way where they could control humans, and the way that spreads, and there's no way to stop it, I guess. Minus, I don't know. There's no way to stop it. That's why there's no vaccine or whatever and shit like that. So basically that's what happens. And then that's the first episode, the breakout day. And then it fast forwards to 20 years. So it starts in 2003, and then you think well, at least Shrek exists in this world. So I'm it's not going to be the worst. So we can still watch Shrek. I would have been 10 when that happened. I don't know how I would have been. I didn't live in a big city at that time, so I wouldn't have been bombed. I lived around a lot of rednecks, so you never know how I would have been, how I've done in this world. But yeah, no. And then Joel, played by Pedro Pascal, has to transport Ellie, the little girl, who's Belle Ramsey, who they transport her in the show. In real life, she's a they, them. She's a they, them. To a doctor to create a vaccine or whatever type of thing to at least make humans immune to cordyceps and shit like that. But then they're ultra strong zombie type things, so it's different there. I don't want to go too into the show because it's pretty new, but I do want to talk about it a little bit. Kansas City episode, they changed Pittsburgh to Kansas City in the show. Not the worst idea, but also if you look at the story of it all, it's they go from Boston to Pittsburgh to Oregon. Basically, I think that's what happens. And so I do think Kansas City, or they could have done Kansas City, St. Louis. They could have even done Chicago for the most part. It's just weird that I'm from from around that area. So it's oh my God, I know that street. I'm I've driven there. Shit like that. It looks the same as it does in the apocalypse. It's just... or whatever. So yeah, they got Kansas City pretty correct. I feel that's what would happen to Kansas City in a fucking... first of all, there'd be oh, you're the Kansas City, Kansas tribe? We're the Kansas City, Missouri tribe. Those two would fight for sure. For no goddamn good reason, that's for sure. But then it was they had the thing called the QZ, and it was basically the government taking over, but the government had to kind of go extreme and fascist in a type of way. And so it's like you either live in a fascist commune or a religious commune, which we're going to get into the religious part very quickly. And then there's just like the communist communes. And the communist communes are good. They even had an episode, like episode 3, the big episode, Nick Offerman plays a gay man who meets another gay man during the apocalypse, and he's one of those like doomsday preppers, which has changed my mind on the doomsday preppers, because like right now when things are okay right now. We're gonna go with things are okay right now. It's not that bad. Like those guys are like, those guys are fucking insane. But if shit like that happens, you're like, man, I wish we would listen to that guy. Shit like that. But anyways, though, that was cool. So like you had that, guys like that, and it's just like two guys and self-sufficient doomsday preppers and type of stuff like that. And that was that. And then you go to Oregon, there was like a commune. Was it Oregon? No, maybe Wyoming. Jackson, Wyoming, I think. It was commune, or like, yeah, it's a commune. Oh, it's like communism? It's like, no, not like that. And he's like, yeah, it's basically communism. Like, we all work together and live in a community. This is communism. So that's, like, actually what communism is, like, that little area. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't sound too bad. Like, things couldn't have been as good as they are pre-COVID. I don't know. The world kind of just fucking sucks right now. Yeah, that. And then I had to go to, like, Salt Lake City area. And I just realized, because the Salt Lake City area goes to a subplot. Like, they're supposed to go to a hospital there for a surgery to find this vaccine or whatever. And, yeah, they ended up being, there's, like, these raider groups or whatever. And it's a group of very religious people. It was a very religious Christian group. And, me realizing this takes place in Utah, they're fucking Mormons. They're Mormons. And this Mormon group, they've resorted to killing people and eating them. Now, they don't just, like, eat them, like, raw, like, out of the fucking body or whatever. They, like, cut them up and cook them or whatever, And it makes you very uncomfortable. And especially if you took too long to understand that, like I did. Like, ugh. And, they're like, oh, we killed a deer. It's like, oh, it's still serve up the humans. Still have human. It's like a guy died or whatever. And, like, they're like, can we bury my dad? It's like, we'll bury your dad when the snow goes away. I'm like, we're eating my dad, aren't we? And like, ugh. Just like that. Like, the cannibalism, it was just, that episode is just fucking fucked up. And, like, the guy was, like, a religious leader, which, like, piques my interest. I'm like, yeah, religious people are fucking, I get fucking like that. But, if the apocalypse did happen, like, something like that, like, religious leaders would milk that shit. Everything they are, because they would be leaders. And, yeah, Ellie almost gets raped in the show. And, yeah, and I was like, yeah, that's pretty much what would happen. And I'm like, I think they got that part right. But I do think they go to the apocalypse, like, dealing with the apocalypse, finding a good community, finding a bad community. It's all in there, an angry community. It's very interesting. Last episode, that aired last night. Last night to me, so I'm still, like, thinking about it. And like I said, I never played the game. Basically, they were going to do surgery on Ellie to get something out of her brain. And basically what they could do with whatever they have in the brain could create an immunity to cordyceps. So if, like, you got infected with cordyceps, they wouldn't, like, destroy your brain or something like that. They were like, oh, you're already infected or something. It's something weird like that. That's what happened. But Joel, like, the way it happened is, like, Joel learned that that Ellie would die. Spoilers alert. Ellie would die due to the surgery. So, theoretically, if Ellie would die, however, they have a cure for this whole thing, and then humanity would have a second chance at what's going on. But for Joel, it was like, these are this, like, rebel group called the Fireflies. You're going to do this and make this. But in Joel's mind, it's like, you're not killing Ellie. That's all I have to live for. And so Joel just fucking goes on a bloodbath. He kills everything. And you're like, Joel, I think they're injured enough. You can let them get away. But, like, honestly, though, realistically, in the real life, you wouldn't let them get away. They're going to come back for revenge. That's all that's going to happen. So, like, he had to do that. If he's going to save Ellie, he had to do everything he had to do. Like, 100%. That's what had to happen. But Joel lied, in the end about, like, why she's alive, you know, like she's there and like they're leaving and shit like that at the end of it all, you know. And so Ellie's alive, but if she died and they got the thing, there's a possibility humanity could be saved. And so there's like the interesting decision about it, and that's how like you end the story, you know.
What?
About how like this story is. So should Joel have let Ellie die to save humanity, or should he have saved her and kept her alive and saved her? Because there's not even a chance that it could work. Like, should he even let her die to try and stuff like that? And that's the whole argument. Like, should Ellie have died to save the world? And should Joel have fought to save Ellie in the end of it? And apparently in the game, like, there's a scene where there's the doctor that's going to perform surgery on him, and he's like, let her go. He's like, sir, but we have to do it. And Joel just kills the guy. And that's apparently a big plot point for the second game that I have not gotten into yet, so we're not going to do that. But, yeah. So, like, but in the game, though, like, before you shoot the doctor's unarmed. The doctor's never going to hurt you. Like, they'll let you just sit there. Like, you can't back out or anything. Like, to move forward in this game, you have to shoot the doctor. Like, and that's like a hard thing as the player to do and stuff like that. Just kill an innocent person who's not going to fight back. So it's very interesting. But I think we all forget that Ellie should have made the decision in the first place. Adults made that decision of what's going on, but I think Ellie should have been the one to decide. And they should have gotten her consent, because even though Ellie is a child, they should have gotten consent before they decide to murder. Before you get murdered, you should, you know, for a greater cause, you should be known about that. You should be aware and be able to make that decision yourself, because I believe that all women should be in charge of their own. I think we should all be in charge of our own bodies. And Ellie definitely should have been. So Ellie should have made that decision, and she was not able to make that decision. Adults made decisions for their own agendas, and that's the crazy thing. So that's The Last of Us. Please tell me what you liked about the show, because I have to sneeze. And that's what I was going to say. So, thank you for watching this clip.